Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're jumping into a really rich passage, Isaiah chapter 51.
Yes, it's a fascinating chapter.
Our plan is to sort of unpack the messages here, see what insights emerge when we look closely. It's often seen as comforting, but there's a lot more going on, right?
Oh, definitely. It's comfort, yes, but it's also a challenge, a call to remember, to trust. It uses some pretty intense imagery to get your attention.
Okay, let's dive in then. It starts right off with, "Listen to me, you who pursue righteousness and who seek the Lord." So, a specific audience.
Exactly. It's speaking to people actively trying to connect with God, seeking what's right.
And the first instruction is, well, it feels a bit unexpected. Look to the rock from which you were cut and to the quarry from which you were hewn. Then it clarifies. Look to Abraham, your father, and to Sarah. Why start there? Why look back?
Well, think about it. You're maybe struggling now. Pursuing righteousness feels hard. And God says, remember your roots. Remember how this all started.
With Abraham and Sarah.
Right. And it highlights this specific detail. Abraham was just one when God called him. One person.
And maybe feeling pretty insignificant or powerless at that point?
Possibly, yeah. Elderly, childless, seems impossible. But then it says God blessed him and made him many.
Okay, so looking back is about remembering God's power to create something huge from almost nothing. That impossible beginning.
Precisely. It's like saying, don't forget the scale God works on. If he did that then, starting with one.
He can handle whatever we're facing now. It establishes a baseline for God's power.
Exactly. And this isn't just a history lesson. It leads directly into a promise for the future. Right after Abraham, it says, the Lord will surely comfort Zion and will look with compassion on all her ruins.
So it acknowledges the present difficulty, the ruins. Things are broken.
Yes. It sees the devastation. But the promise is comfort within that ruin, compassion on it.
And the transformation promised is, wow, deserts becoming like Eden, wastelands like the garden of the Lord.
It's not just patching things up. It's total reversal.
Yeah.
Barrenness to flourishing.
Complete restoration.
And the result, joy and gladness will be found in her, thanksgiving, and the sound of singing. The silence of ruin replaced by celebration.
So the logic is, remember the power that started it all with Abraham. That same power can bring this kind of total, joyful restoration out of your current ruins. Looking back fuels hope for the future.
That's it. Your history, that rock you were cut from, is proof that hope isn't misplaced, even when things look desolate.
Makes sense. It grounds the hope in something tangible, something God has already done.
Yeah, a demonstrated pattern.
Okay, moving on. Verse 4 has another call. Listen to me, my people. Hear me, my nation. Seems like the focus shifts a bit here.
It broadens, I think. It talks about God's law going out, his justice becoming a light to the nations. It's thinking bigger now, beyond just their immediate situation.
Universal purpose. And it feels urgent, too. My righteousness draws near speedily. My salvation is on the way. Like, this isn't some far-off thing.
Right. There's an imminence to it. But then you get this absolutely stunning contrast.
This part really stands out. It tells you to look up at the sky, down at the earth.
And then says, the heavens will vanish like smoke. The earth will wear out like a garment, and its inhabitants die like flies.
Wow. That's blunt. Everything you see, everything solid is portrayed as temporary, fading, decaying.
Human life die like flies.
Yeah.
It's designed to shock you, I think, to shake up your perspective on what seems permanent. The sky, the ground gone like smoke, worn out like old clothes.
It really forces you to confront impermanence. All the things we build, worry about, they're set against this backdrop.
Exactly. And right after painting that picture of cosmic decay, it gives the anchor, but my salvation will last forever. My righteousness will never fail.
Ah, the contrast. Everything physical fades, but God's salvation, God's justice, that's eternal.
That's the only thing that truly endures. It forces the question, like you said, where are you placing your ultimate trust? In the fading physical or the eternal divine?
And that leads right into the next, hear me, in verse 7. This time it's aimed at people who already get it, who know what is right, who have God's law in your hearts.
Yes, if you're already aligned with that eternal reality, then you get this next instruction.
Which is, do not fear the reproach of men or be terrified by their insults.
And why not? Because, again, look at the imagery. Those doing the insulting, they're temporary too. For the moth will eat them up like a garment. The worm will devour them like wool.
Okay, so just like the earth wears out, the power and words of those who oppose you are also fading, decaying, like moth-eating clothes.
Their criticism, their threats, it's all transient. It has no lasting weight compared to the eternal. and it hammers it home again. But my righteousness will last forever, my salvation through all generations.
So the insight is about perspective, isn't it? If your core identity is rooted in God's eternal nature, which is in your heart, then the temporary noise of human opposition, it loses its ultimate power over you.
Right. It's not about suddenly being immune to hurt, but about seeing it in its proper temporary context against what lasts forever. Your security isn't in human approval, but in that eternal connection.
That reframing is powerful. Okay, so understanding this contrast, eternal God versus temporary world and temporary opposition, sets us up for verse 9. The tone shifts dramatically here.
It really does. Now, it's not God speaking, it's the people crying out to God. And it's urgent. Awake, awake. Clothe yourself with strength, O arm of the Lord. Awake as in days gone by.
It sounds almost demanding. Like, God, where's that power you used to show?
It's a bold prayer for sure. It acknowledges feeling like God is maybe inactive right now, and it calls on him to act powerfully like he did before.
And it immediately backs this up by reminding God and themselves of those past actions. Cutting Rahab to pieces, piercing that monster through. What are those referring to?
Often seen as mythological language, describing real historical power. Rahab can symbolize chaotic forces, or even powerful empires like Egypt that opposed God's people, piercing the monster again, overcoming seemingly unbeatable chaotic opposition.
Like forces of chaos or oppression.
Exactly. And then it gets very specific, recalling the Exodus. Was it not you who dried up the sea, the waters of the great deep?
Who made a road in the depths of the sea so that the redeemed might cross over. That's the ultimate picture of impossible deliverance, isn't it?
Absolutely. Making a path through total chaos, through an impassable barrier. It's proof of God's unique power to intervene when people are utterly trapped.
So the prayer, awake, is basically saying, God, remember that kind of power, the sea-splitting, monster-defeating power. We need that again now.
Yes. And the hope driving this prayer is the promised return. The ransomed of the Lord will return. That's what they're longing for.
And the return isn't described as grim or difficult. It's entering Zion with singing, everlasting joy will crown their heads.
Gladness and joy will overtake them, and sorrow and sighing will flee away. Pure triumph, permanent joy, no more suffering.
So recalling those epic past deliverances is the foundation for hoping for this future joy. History becomes the fuel for prayer and expectation.
It absolutely does. Those past acts prove God can overcome anything. So you appeal to that history as assurance for the future. It's saying you did the impossible then, you can do it again for us.
It really shows how remembering past interventions, big or small, can give you strength when you're facing your own impassable sea. History as a resource for hope.
And then right after that human plea, God responds. Verse 12, it's incredibly direct and personal. I, even I, and he who comforts you.
Not just I will comfort you, but I am the one who comforts you. Right now, that's his identity.
Exactly. And he immediately challenges their fear, bringing back that core contrast. Who are you that you fear mortal men, the sons of men who are but grass?
That you forget the Lord your Maker who stretched out the heavens and laid the foundations of the earth.
It's almost like a gentle rebuke. Your fear of temporary humans, grass, comes from forgetting the sheer scale and power of the eternal Creator, the one who built the cosmos.
It puts the fear in perspective. It feels real, but it's misplaced when you remember who God is.
Right. And the text acknowledges that fear is real. It mentions living in constant terror every day because of the wrath of the oppressor who is bent on destruction. It gets the lived experience of oppression.
It doesn't dismiss the threat.
No, but right after validating that fear, God asks this deflating question. For where is the wrath of the oppressor? In the grand scheme, compared to God's power, where is it really? It has no ultimate substance.
Its power is limited, temporary, and then there's a concrete promise for those suffering most directly.
Yes, for the prisoners. The cowering prisoners will soon be set free. They will not die in their dungeon, nor will they lack bread. Real, practical deliverance is coming.
And God underlines his power again, using that sea imagery. For I am the Lord your God, who turns up the sea so that its waves roar. The Lord Almighty is his name.
He controls chaos. The same power that dried the sea can also stir it up. Complete mastery.
But this cosmic creator, this master of chaos, also says something incredibly intimate. I have put my words in your mouth and covered you with the shadow of my hand.
It's breathtaking, really. The one who sets stars in place is also giving you the words to speak and personally sheltering you. Ultimate power alongside profound personal care.
And it ends with that affirmation, and who say to Zion, you are my people.
So the comfort here is profound. It's about remembering the vast difference between fragile human oppressors and the eternal universe-creating God who is personally comforting you, protecting you, claiming you as his own. Forgetting God leads to fearing humans. Remembering God dissolves that fear.
Seeing the true scale of reality again. Okay, this brings us to the final section, which starts with another awake, awake command, but this time to Jerusalem itself.
Yes, and it immediately acknowledges the depth of suffering. You who have drunk from the hand of the Lord the cup of his wrath.
That's intense imagery. The cup of wrath. Experiencing God's judgment, or at least profound suffering allowed by God.
And she's drained to its dregs the goblet that makes men stagger. This isn't a sip, it's complete, overwhelming suffering. Reeling from it. Incapacitated.
The description of the impact is brutal too. No support. Of all the sons she bore, there was none to guide her, none to take her by the hand. Utter isolation.
Facing double calamities.
Yeah.
Ruin and destruction, famine and sword.
Yeah.
One disaster after another.
And the people. Your sons have fainted. They lie at the head of every street like antelope caught in a net, just helpless collapse.
Trapped. And the text doesn't shy away from the source. They are filled with the wrath of the Lord and the rebuke of your God. It confronts the idea of divine dealing head on.
It's a picture of utter devastation. But then the turning point comes. A direct address. Therefore hear this, you afflicted one, made drunk, but not with wine.
It validates their staggering state, acknowledges the source.
Yeah.
And then comes the shift. God says, see, I have taken out of your hand the cup that made you stagger. From that cup, the goblet of my wrath, you will never drink again. It's over. The suffering has reached its end. That source of affliction is removed. Permanently.
Wow, what a promise. And the reversal, the justice aspect, is so stark in the last bit. What happens to that cup?
God says, I will put it into the hands of your tormentors.
The very ones who caused the suffering.
Who said to you, fall prostrate, that we may walk over you. It even reminds them of the humiliation they endured.
And you made your back like the ground, like a street to be walked over. That's such a visceral image of total subjugation.
Horrific. But the promise is that those tormentors will now drink that same cup. The tables are turned completely by divine justice.
So this final part acknowledges the absolute depths of suffering, even divinely allowed suffering, but promises a definite end and a just reversal. The ones who inflicted the pain will face the consequences. Vindication.
Exactly. It moves from despair under judgment to release and the settling of accounts.
Okay, looking back at the whole chapter, Isaiah 51, it really takes you on a journey, doesn't it?
It really does. From your origins with Abraham.
To the future promise of Eden-like restoration.
From the shock of seeing the heavens and earth as temporary.
To the anchor of God's eternal salvation and righteousness.
From crying out for God's power based on past acts.
To hearing God's direct comfort, reminding you he's the creator and you shouldn't fear temporary human threats.
And finally acknowledging the deepest suffering, the cup of wrath.
But promising its removal and a just reversal against the tormentors.
It constantly challenges your perspective on time, on power, on fear, on suffering, on justice. And it roots all hope in who God is and what he has done and will do.
So maybe a final thought for you, our listener, to take away from this deep dive. Think about that really striking image, the heavens vanishing like smoke, the earth wearing out like a garment. How does confronting the sheer impermanence of everything physical, everything we can see and touch, challenge where you typically put your energy, your fears, your hopes? What does it truly mean to anchor yourself in what the text calls eternal God's salvation and righteousness in a world that is ultimately fading away?